I'm Teresa. Sitting in my new office at the federal courthouse, I'm surrounded by the hum of security systems and the weight of responsibility. The promotion to senior documentation specialist with level 4 clearance has brought a new level of importance to my work. But it all started with a family dinner that turned my world upside down. It was a typical Sunday at my parents' house. The aroma of my mother, Linda's, famous pot roast filled the air, but the tension was palpable. My younger brother, Jake, sat across from me, smirking as he swirled his wine. My sister, Sarah, was glued to her phone, feigning disinterest. My father, Henry, a strict and opinionated man, radiated authority from the end of the table. My mother broke the silence with that forced cheerfulness that always preceded criticism. Teresa, your father and I did you a huge favor yesterday. I set down my fork, trying to keep my composure. Oh, I replied. My father, chest puffed with pride, interjected, we finally cleaned out that mess you call your home office. You're 45 years old and still living like a college student with papers everywhere. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my expression neutral. I see. What exactly did you clean? Everything, my mother said triumphantly. All those boxes of old papers you've been hoarding. Stacks and stacks of worthless documents. We got $200 from the recycling center. Can you believe people pay for scrap paper by weight now? The pot roast turned to ash in my mouth. I placed my napkin on the table slowly. Which boxes specifically? All of them, Sarah chimed in, finally looking up from her phone. Seriously, Teresa, it was like an episode of that hoarding show. Papers from floor to ceiling. How do you even live like that? The ones in the locked filing cabinets? I asked quietly. Oh, we had to break those locks, my father said dismissively. Waste of good filing cabinets locking up garbage. But don't worry, we kept the cabinets. You can use them for something useful now. Jake laughed. I told them you'd probably freak out about your important papers. What were they, Teresa? Grocery lists from 2012? Old college essays? I took a slow sip of water, trying to process what they had done. 7 years of my life's work, sealed federal court documents, witness statements, classified testimonies, and evidence logs, all requiring security clearance to even view, were gone. I said evenly, you had no right to enter my home. My mother countered, we have a key for emergencies. And that mess was an emergency, a fire hazard. We were helping you. I continued, my voice steady, I'm a 45-year-old woman with my own house. You broke into my home and destroyed my property. My father scoffed, destroyed? We cleaned up garbage. You should be thanking us. Do you know how long it took to haul all that paper out? 3 full truckloads. Sarah added, scrolling through her phone again, it's not like you're doing anything important anyway. You work from home doing what exactly? You've never really explained your job. Court documentation specialist, I said simply. Jake grinned, see, papers. You probably just scan old documents or something. All that stuff was probably copies anyway. I asked, when did you take them? Yesterday morning, my mother confirmed. The recycling center closes at noon on Saturdays, so we had to work fast. They were very impressed with the quantity. The manager said it was one of their largest single deliveries. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. My father leaned back in his chair and said, you know what your problem is, Teresa? You've never grown up. Never got married, no kids, just you and your papers in that house. Your brother has 2 children and a successful dental practice. Sarah's a marketing manager. What do you have to show for your life? Boxes of trash. I said quietly, I have my work. Sarah repeated mockingly, work? That mysterious work you can never talk about. It's probably just data entry or something boring and you're embarrassed to admit it. My phone buzzed again and again. My mother asked annoyed, "Aren't you going to get that? It's rude to have your phone at the table, but since it keeps buzzing." I pulled out my phone. There were 12 missed calls, all from the same number, a secured federal line. I stood up and said, "I need to take this." Jake called after me, "Oh, now you're too important for family dinner." I answered on the 13th ring. MS. Teresa, this is Deputy Clerk Thompson from the District Court for the Western District. We have a significant problem. The security seals on case 45 to 2378 have been broken. The documents are showing as checked out under your credential code, but they're not in the secure facility. My stomach dropped. When were they flagged as missing? 20 minutes ago during routine audit. That case is under federal seal with national security implications. MS. Teresa, those documents contain classified witness testimony in an ongoing RICO investigation involving interstate drug trafficking. I interrupted, they were taken from my home office yesterday morning, approximately 10 a.m. They were disposed of at a recycling center, location unknown. There was a 3-second silence on the other end. Please repeat that. I took a deep breath. My family entered my home without permission and removed approximately 47 boxes of documents. They sold them to a recycling center for cash. I just learned of this 10 minutes ago. The clerk said, "Miss Teresa, do you understand the severity of this situation? Those documents are under federal seal. They contain witness identities, testimony from protected individuals, evidence in active cases involving organized crime and political corruption." "I'm aware of the contents," I said. "I authenticated them. The chief judge will need to be notified immediately. This is a breach of federal security protocol. There will be an investigation." MS. Teresa, you could be facing. I understand. I need the name of every recycling center within a 20-mi radius of my location. And I need federal marshals mobilized to retrieve those documents before they're processed. I'm conferring with Judge Anderson now. Hold, please. Through the doorway, I could hear my family continuing their dinner conversation. "She's probably getting fired," Sarah said with a laugh. "Did you see her face?" "About time she faced some consequences," my father agreed. "Maybe this will be the wake-up call she needs to get a real job." The line clicked back. MS. Teresa, Judge Anderson is convening an emergency session. You're ordered to appear in federal court tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The U.S. Marshal Service has been notified and will be contacting you within the hour to determine the location of the documents. This is now a federal investigation into the compromise of sealed court materials. Understood. MS. Teresa, the judge asked me to inform you that if those documents have been destroyed or if any information contained within them has been exposed to unauthorized parties, you're facing potential charges for mishandling classified materials under 18 U.S. C. Section 2071. That carries a maximum sentence of 3 years imprisonment and disqualification from holding office. I'm aware of the statute, I said calmly. However, the clerk continued, if it's determined that the breach occurred due to criminal trespass and theft by third parties, those individuals will face federal charges. Can you provide the names and identifying information of the parties who removed the documents from your secured location? I looked through the doorway at my family laughing and eating pot roast. Yes, I can provide that information. The marshals would need a full statement. Judge Anderson had also issued an emergency protective order freezing any financial transactions related to the sale of the documents. The recycling center would be located and secured. I walked back to the dining room. 4 faces turned toward me expectantly. Everything okay? My mother asked with false sweetness. You could say that, I replied, sitting back down. Tell me exactly which recycling center you went to. Why? My father demanded. So you can go dig through trash? Teresa, this is pathetic even for you. I repeated calmly, the name and address of the facility. We don't remember, Sarah said. Some place off Highway 60. They gave us cash, we left. Why does it matter? Jake offered, it was called something green. Green Meadows? Green Forest? Who cares? I said quietly, you need to care. Because those weren't my personal papers. My father groaned, oh, here we go. The dramatic Teresa show. What were they, Teresa? Your novel manuscript? Your diary? Sealed federal court documents, I said. Classified materials from ongoing criminal investigations. Evidence protected under federal security protocols. Witness testimony in cases involving organized crime and drug trafficking. The table went silent. That's not funny, my mother said finally. I'm not joking. I'm a federal court documentation specialist with security clearance. Those documents were secured in my home office under federal protocol. By breaking into my home and removing them, you've committed several federal crimes. Jake laughed nervously. Come on, Teresa. You're really committing to this bit. I continued, the U.S. Marshals Service will be contacting you within the hour. There's an emergency court session tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Judge Anderson is overseeing the investigation personally. My father sputtered, this is absurd. You're trying to scare us because we cleaned up your mess. I said evenly, you broke into my home. You destroyed locked filing cabinets containing materials you had no legal right to access. You sold classified federal documents to a recycling center. Those actions constitute theft of government property, mishandling of classified information, and obstruction of justice. My mother demanded, Teresa, stop this right now. This has gone far enough. We were helping you. I stated simply, you committed federal crimes. Multiple felonies, actually. Sarah's phone slipped from her hand onto the table. You're serious. Completely serious. The documents you sold contained witness identities in active RICO cases. If any of that information has been compromised, if anyone saw those files, if they've been processed and exposed, the penalties are severe. My mother's voice rose sharply, we didn't know. How are we supposed to know? You never told us what you really did. I replied, I told you I worked with classified court documents. I told you my home office was secured. I told you never to enter without permission. You broke into my house anyway. My father shouted, we had a key. For emergencies. I retorted, breaking into locked cabinets to steal what you assumed was trash doesn't constitute an emergency. Sarah protested, we're your family. You can't seriously be threatening us with federal charges over some papers. I said, they weren't some papers. They were sealed evidence in cases that could determine whether criminal organizations face justice, whether witnesses stay safe, whether corruption at the highest levels gets exposed. Jake stood abruptly. This is insane. I'm calling our lawyer. I agreed, you should. You're going to need one. Actually, you'll each need separate counsel. Federal charges typically require specialized criminal defense attorneys. My phone rang again. I glanced at the screen. It was the U.S. Marshals. Excuse me. I stepped away, leaving my family sitting in stunned silence. Miss Teresa, this is Deputy U.S. Marshal Davis. We've located Green Forest Recycling Center off Highway 60. The facility is being secured as we speak. We need you to provide a statement regarding the removal of federal court documents from your residence. I can provide that statement now if needed. We're dispatching agents to your current location. GPS shows you at 987 Pinewood Drive. Is that correct? That's my parents' address. The individuals who took the documents are here. Perfect. We'll need statements from all parties. ETA 12 minutes. Judge Anderson has authorized us to make arrests if necessary pending investigation findings. When I returned to the dining room, my family's expressions had shifted from dismissive to worried. Teresa, my mother began carefully, maybe we should discuss this calmly. Surely there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. You took sealed federal court documents without authorization and sold them. That's factually what happened. But we didn't mean to, she protested. We thought we were helping. Intent doesn't negate the crime, Mom. Breaking into someone's house and stealing their property is burglary whether you meant well or not. When that property happens to be classified federal materials, the charges escalate significantly. Sarah said desperately, there has to be something we can do. Can't you tell them it was a mistake? That you gave us permission? I replied calmly, I won't be filing a false statement with federal investigators. That would be perjury. Jake demanded, so you're just going to let them arrest your own family? I said, I'm going to tell the truth about what happened. What consequences follow from that truth is up to the federal court system. My mother cried, your father is 70 years old. You'd send your own father to prison? I said, I didn't make the choice to break into my home. I didn't decide to destroy locked filing cabinets. I didn't sell classified documents. Those were your choices. My father slumped in his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 70 years. Teresa, please. We made a mistake. We're sorry. I said quietly, you told me I had nothing to show for my life. You mocked my work, invaded my privacy, and destroyed 7 years of carefully authenticated documentation. Documents that protect witnesses, secure prosecutions, and serve justice. You did all that while feeling proud of yourselves. Sarah repeated desperately, we didn't know. I said, you didn't ask. You assumed. You dismissed me as a hoarder, broke into my home, and committed multiple federal crimes because you were so certain that my life, my work, and my choices were worthless. The doorbell rang. That would be the U.S. Marshals, I said standing. I'd advise you all to cooperate fully with their investigation. I walked to the door and opened it to find 4 federal agents in tactical gear. Miss Teresa? The lead agent asked. Yes. Deputy U.S. Marshal Davis. We spoke on the phone. Are the parties who removed the documents from your residence present? They are. My parents, Henry and Linda, my sister Sarah, and my brother Jake. We'll need to speak with everyone separately. Is there a location where we can conduct interviews? The living room, dining room, and 2 bedrooms upstairs are available. As the marshals entered, I heard my mother start to cry. Sarah was frantically texting someone, probably her husband. Jake stood frozen, his confident smirk finally gone. My father just stared at his hands. Marshal Davis said to me quietly, we've secured the recycling center. The documents hadn't been processed yet, thank God. They're being transported to the federal courthouse under armed guard right now. Preliminary assessment suggests most materials are intact. That's fortunate, I said. Judge Anderson wants you to know that pending full inventory and security review, it appears you followed proper protocols for home storage of sensitive materials. The breach occurred due to criminal trespass and theft, not negligence on your part. I appreciated that information. However, there would still be a full investigation. And Miss Teresa, Marshal Davis lowered his voice further, the documents in those boxes, I've been with the marshals for 20 years. I've seen a lot. But the cases those files are connected to, that's some serious work you do. It's important work. I agreed simply, it is. Your family had no idea? They never asked. He shook his head. Let's get these statements recorded. The federal courthouse at 9 a.m. Monday morning was as imposing as it should be. I sat in the witness chair in Judge Anderson's courtroom, flanked by court security officers. My family sat in the gallery, each with their attorney. They looked like they hadn't slept. Judge Anderson, a stern woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes, reviewed the documents before her. The court clerk, the same one who'd called me initially, stood nearby. This court is now in session. We're here for an emergency hearing regarding the compromise of sealed federal court documents under Case 45 to 2378 and 15 other active cases. Ms. Teresa, you're under oath. Tell me exactly what happened. I provided my statement, clear, factual, unemotional. Every detail about the locked filing cabinets, the security protocols, the unauthorized entry, the theft and sale of the documents. When I finished, Judge Anderson turned to the marshal who'd recovered the documents. Deputy Davis, status of the recovered materials? Your Honor, all documents have been recovered and re-secured. We located them at Green Forest Recycling Center approximately 6 hours after they were delivered. The facility manager confirmed the materials hadn't been processed, photographed, or exposed to anyone beyond 2 employees who handled the initial weighing and payment. Those employees have been interviewed and confirmed they didn't read or copy any documents. Security footage corroborates their statements. So, the breach has been contained? Yes, Your Honor. However, the documents were removed from secure federal and transported in an unsecured vehicle to a civilian facility. That constitutes a significant security violation regardless of outcome. Judge Anderson nodded and turned her attention to my family's section of the courtroom. Henry, Linda, Sarah, and Jake, stand, please. They stood, all 4 of them looking terrified. You are each being charged with theft of government property under 18 U.S. C. Section 641, unauthorized removal and retention of classified materials under 18 U.S. C. Section 1924, and obstruction of justice under 18 U.S. C. Section 1503. These are federal felony charges carrying significant prison sentences. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. Sarah was crying silently. Jake looked like he might vomit. My father just stared at the judge in disbelief. My father's attorney stood, a man in an expensive suit who'd clearly been hired in a panic. My clients had no knowledge that